was growing up, we'd always get a warning that a sitcom was going to approach difficult and tough topics when it would be billed as a very special episode. This episode of Chip Chats comes with that same billing. On June 4th, 2018, I lost my 17-year-old daughter Liv suddenly and unexpectedly. We would learn a few weeks later that she had suffered from an AVM, which is short for arteriovenous malformation, described by the Mayo Clinic as a tangle of abnormal blood vessels connecting arteries and veins in the brain. I'd never heard of an AVM prior to this, and to this day, it seems to be very rare. In most cases, if caught early enough, it can be treated, but in the rare cases, there's nothing that can be done. In the summer of 2019, my mom sent me a copy of People magazine and suggested I should read an article about a country singer named Drake White who revealed that he has AVM after nearly collapsing on stage. At the time, I was not familiar with Drake's music, but I knew someday I'd really like to talk to him, have him explain his experience so that I could learn more. This past summer, Drake started releasing new material and announced tour dates, and it seemed like the perfect time to chat. So, on this very special episode of Chip Chats, I welcome Drake White, Southern rock singer and AVM survivor. You're going to hear for yourself, but I admire Drake's passion and his ability to make something good out of what he refers to as his injury. I hope this story can help others the way that it's helped me.
This pain ain't nothing like I've ever known. This heartbroken has got a hold and won't let go. No, even in the worst, I got a feeling. Maybe the hurt's the healing. Maybe the hurt's the healing.
So you've done I think you did some dates over the summer, but this is the first time that you're getting back on the road. Is that right?
Well, yeah. No, I mean, we've been on the road. We've been doing dates. We've been doing fairs, festivals, and shows. But as far as putting together a tour and getting back on an extensive tour that was, that is headlined, that we're selling and promoting and going out, this is the first tour back from the injury and the pandemic. So it's just super special.
Along those lines, are you anxious? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Or is this feeling like you're getting back to your job?
The latter, man. I mean, I'm just really excited. I mean, it's so life-giving for me to be able to get up and meet people and get on stage and for me, there's no nervousness. I mean, this is what I was put on earth to do. So, I mean, it's just like a deer jumping over a fence, that's what he was born to do. And so for me, it's just going to be, I'm very excited about getting to see the fans and getting to get this new music out there. Cause we've lived through a lot since I got out there and was able to make this record that I'm extremely proud of. So releasing this record and getting back on tour is what makes me happy, and I aim to be happy, man.
That's awesome. So here's my theory, and you can tell me if I'm right or if I'm way off base. But and it's more related about my growing up. So I didn't start listening to quote unquote country music until I was an adult, and I grew up in the suburbs, and my parents didn't listen to country music. So my theory is that kids, when they're growing up, are influenced by peers, by parents, by surroundings. So in your case, did you grow up with parents who had country albums and southern rock albums? Did you grow up on a farm in a rural area, or were you a suburb kid who fell in love with country music?
No, I definitely grew up on a farm in a rural area, and my dad was a rock and roller. He was classic rock stations became really, really popular when I was in high school. So I started listening to everything from Steely Dan to Queen to ZZ Top to Leonard Skinner and Marshall Tucker Band and all these 70s icons. Country was not 90s country, and then getting into songwriting, I loved Willie and Waylon, Chris Christopherson, and those guys. So my mom and dad definitely always had music going around, and being so close to Muscle Shoals, a lot of that soul was in. But church was a big part of it too. The the soulfulness of being in church and the spirit-driven kind of anointed stuff was I loved that sound as well. So, and I'm not talking about necessarily the praise and worship stuff. I'm talking about the gospel, you know.
Right.
So that's where really my palette of music was established. But it was just always so natural. I always gravitated. It's not hard to be yourself is one of my favorite quotes. And I try not to. I go towards stuff that I like, you know.
Yep.
And I really, really enjoy that southern, swampy, soulful storytelling thing, and the vulnerability of all that stuff. But you know, the music of the '70s. I mean, I still consider it the best music, you know, ever made. You know, from 70 to 75, 76, 77. You know. So that was kind of it. That's kind of it for me.
Yeah, I just turned 50 this summer, and I spent a lot of the last year and a half working out of my basement, and I was a vinyl fan as a kid, and then I followed the trends. You know, I bought cassettes, CDs, digital music, but now being in the basement and being able to find cheap records, I have probably 500 records I've bought in the last couple of years, and I would say a majority of them are exactly that time period you're talking about, because my parents were not huge music listeners. So along the way, I've heard the hits by Foghat and Grand Funk Railroad and Allman Brothers, but I never really dove deep. And so that's what I've been buying, because I don't know if you buy records, but you can get those records pretty cheap.
Absolutely. And I think it's cool to go in a world that's moving so fast, where everything is a 30-second TikTok video or bust. To go in and really grab a vinyl record is something. I read this thing called The Outcast, and is basically how Outkast busted into hip hop, and how they weren't necessarily the sound. They were kind of shunned by the industry, and you know, and then my buddy Charlie Worsham just wrote an incredible piece, or had a great speech about the scenic route to stardom. And I mean, dude, I'm 10 years into this career. You know, I'm 12 years into a 10-year town. As I think it's Haley Winters wrote that song, but it's like, for me, man, I wouldn't have it any other way. The plot has thickened, and my story is coming out in these songs and vulnerability, and that's what my heroes did. That's what it feels like I should do, and what I am doing. So. But back to that, you know, I was raised on a cooler, man, sitting on a cooler in between two seats, getting people beer and listening to the great music. And I love storytellers, and I love the countryside of stuff, because I mean, I'm from Alabama, where, you know, the cicadas, and when you say somebody's young, you don't say, they're young. You say, they were knee-high to a grasshopper. You know, and speaking in languages like that is stuff I'm obsessed with. I love the Faulkner-esque ways of going and writing, and I love the grammar errors. You know, I don't think of them as errors. I think of them as, it's a flow for me, and I'm flowing, whether I'm freestyling to a hip hop top record and loving on Sublime and stuff that my sister kind of brought me up on, or if I'm listening to old school country. I like everything in between, from Merle to 311 to Steely Dan to Limp Bizkit, you know?
Yeah. I absolutely love that. I'm the same way, but it's funny. I was just thinking about this before talking to you, that if you had asked me in high school what music I liked, I would have said everything but country. And I don't know if it was that I wasn't exposed to it, if the 80s country music maybe wasn't the best entry point for me. But again, like I said, I've gone back, and what I love about your music, and I think what I love about kind of what you're doing, and maybe, I don't know if you consider them peers or not, but like, I've really found an appreciation and really love bands like Blackberry Smoke, who sort of mix kind of the same influences it sounds like you have.
Yeah, I mean, we toured with Blackberry Smoke for 2 years. My day-to-day was Charlie and Blackberry's day-to-day, so I developed a great relationship with those guys, and they're in my opinion, they're, if not the best, they're definitely top 5 touring bands out there right now. Those guys are tighter than Dick's Hat Band. I mean, they're great. And Charlie's guitar playing and songwriting is phenomenal. And by the way, it's just popped up in my head a couple of times while we've been talking. If the Eagles came out now, if Marshall Tucker Band and Skinner, ZZ Top, and, all those bands, if you look at the body of work that the Brothers Osborne's put together, that Cadillac Three's put together, that Whiskey Myers has put together, that 1,000 Horses and Zac Brown, that is, the Eagles are country.
Yeah.
The Eagles are now they're old school country, they're old school rock or whatever. That's country, man.
Yep.
That's what's considered country. Whatever you want to talk, it's geographical locations where we're talking about, cicadas and crickets and fishing and bobbers and falling in love and falling out of love. We're also talking about the battle of good and evil. We're talking about the devil in Hotel California. We're talking about Stairways to Heaven and back and forth and in between. And we also talk about the Bob Dylan side of stuff, of the what's going on in the world, the Afghan, the political side of things. That side of music is being expressed.
Right.
And it is the greatest time to be an artist. I don't believe that the music industry is hard anymore. I don't believe it's hard. I believe you go out there, you make records, you love on your fans, you start with your fans, and you just keep working until it's undeniable. And that's always been my MO. And the scenic route to stardom is exactly the one I'm on. It's exactly the one I was supposed to be on. And I was supposed to have the stroke. I was supposed to get dropped by 2 different record deals. I was supposed to marry the woman of my dreams. I was supposed to have the band. I've had multiple band members leave, and that breaks my heart because I love the bands that I've created. But you got to just keep going because life is good. And I wake up in the morning with an optimistic attitude, and it's not a bullshit optimistic attitude because I've lived through hell in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I've lived through absolute hell, and I don't care. I'm not letting it conquer me. I'm going to go out there and make music, and my shows are going to be palpable, and they're going to be vulnerable, and people might see me laugh. They might see me cry. They might see me fall off a balcony in Columbus like I did last time. Who knows?
Right. That's a segue. I'm not sure how much you know coming into this interview about me, so I definitely want to talk to you about what you went through. We lost our 17-year-old daughter, Olivia, on June 4th, 2018, to an AVM, and that was a term I had never heard of before. Didn't know anything about it. It came as a shock and a surprise, and it happened suddenly. And I was not aware of you until my mom a year later sent me People magazine and said, I think this is the same thing. And I read the article, and I was like, that's really the first time outside of our situation, other than, I did some Googling and tried to read up about it. But that was the first time I had ever heard of somebody else going through it. So that being said, can you tell me about what happened and what you remember and just that whole situation?
Yeah, it was 2019, January. I got a headache. Went and got an MRI because the headache persisted throughout the day. And went and got an MRI, and that MRI showed that I had a wad of veins and arteries about the size of a lime in the back right side of my brain. The doctor here in Nashville, his name is Dr. Miracle, and he said that it needed he thought he could get it embolized, which is glued shut, in a series of 7 embolizations where he went up through my femoral artery and glued it shut. We were full deep into that, and I'd started, I was about 50 shows in. I would literally get these surgeries, and then within 48 hours, I would go out on stage, because what happened to me with the AVM rupturing, there was only a 4% chance of that happening.
Yeah.
Very, very low, and it was mitigated by blood pressure medicine. So we were confident, especially confident after I'd done 30, 40 shows, and God just put I think timing happened, and Roanoke, Virginia happened. I mean, we had been on a USO tour. We'd been out to Europe. We'd been on the road with Zac Brown. We were about to go to Australia. So it was a godsend that rupture happened in Roanoke, Virginia, because we were 5 minutes from a Trauma 1 unit.
Yeah.
But I'll back up a little bit. That wad of veins and arteries obviously was an AVM that I was born with as a kid. And that headache was, I wore my brakes out, as I said. I wore the bumpers, all of it, because I was very active. I was training and I did like to run. I did like to work out. I played football and baseball and stayed very active. So AVMs usually happen, they usually pop up in 50 and 60-year-olds by either death or, they have a blood clot in their brain, and it hemorrhages and they die, or they get a bad headache and go down the same road I went on. But at 36, mine popped up because I'd been pumping blood through that part of my brain, forever, So, I just more active than I would say most people.
It's interesting, what you were talking about. My daughter had a headache, was not prone to having headaches, was out on a date with her boyfriend and came home and said she had a migraine headache and went to bed that night, and the next morning was essentially unresponsive. They did the blood clot removal, and it had caused too much damage. And
man, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you telling me about it, because, like I said, it's all sort of a mystery to me, and I sort of feel like I'm swimming blindly. So getting to understand it a little bit is helpful to me, actually. Honestly, you're being a little bit of a therapist, to be honest.
Yeah.
You're helping me out, so I appreciate that very much. And
that's why I kind of took the stance of the victor mentality going out there and telling this story and sharing it. I don't know if you saw my last post, but it's like on Instagram. It's just like, you get these whispers in your head, and I think they're from the devil. I think they are the ones that whispers that say, "Oh, don't share your AVM again." People are tired of hearing about that. Like, you don't want to take the victim mentality, Drake. You want to go out there. People don't care about it. But here's the thing. Everybody's going through something, and I can't imagine, brother, you losing a 17-year-old daughter. I meto that is just insane.
Yeah.
And for some reason, God had me on this earth and decided to spare me. And I believe that if you're breathing on this earth, that just means that he's not finished with you, and that you're not finished with the life that you got. And so for me to go out there and share this and to do these interviews and podcasts and be vulnerable and open to what I felt, through the paralysis, and that's why I did the TED Talk, and that's why I did all this stuff. And, as far as early detection of these things, kids, my kid will, you can't detect fate. It just is what it is. But, I believe going and getting a scan, a MRI early in a kid is a reasonable thing, because this thing had been in my brain my whole life, and we had I've always been high energy, high things, like I've always done pretty good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's really essentially been nothing wrong. And there's nothing that says that headache that came on for me because I was working out hard and eating good and all that stuff. There's nothing that said that couldn't have been exactly what I could have went to sleep just like your daughter did, and woke up non-responsive and ultimately left this earth.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen to me. And I'm so sorry. I deeply am that happened. But I hope that this, I hope that that I don't know what I was going to say. I hope that that it's just, we have a choice to be inspirational with it, to help people do it, because I called an AV, my buddy's little boy's 8, and he was watching me limp. I've got a little bit of a cowboy gait limp going on this left side from the paralysis. And I said, "Man, you ever seen somebody limp like this?" And he's like, "What happened?"
I said, I got attacked by a grizzly bear. And I just go into this story, and it became, like, I'm a storyteller, right? So it became this fable, this tale. I did get attacked by a grizzly bear. That grizzly bear is just in the form of a wad of veins and arteries. And I am choosing, and you have a choice. We have a choice to go out and be inspirations. We have a choice to go out and spread the good news. And the good news is that we're alive, breathing on this earth, and that we can go out there and, hopefully, hey, if you got a headache and that headache persists over, 4 or 5, 6 hours, go get an MRI.
Yeah.
And, go get an MRI. It's paramount to you living or dying. Because, if I went and got one, I had to go get one. I couldn't even see. Couldn't even open up my eyes.
Yeah.
Every light, every noise, everything just hurt, excruciating to the point. And I've got a high threshold of pain, man. You're talking about somebody that weed eats with no shirt on.
Right.
And it's like I couldn't do anything. And
right.
So that's where I'm at on it. And my perspective is, I'm a little rougher on the edges and burly and tough on some stuff, and this has made me empathetic. But at the same time, there's a reason for it, man. There's a reason.
Yes. Yeah. Everything that you've been saying, and that was one of the reasons why I want to do this as a podcast so people can hear the story and hear my story and your story. I will thank you for writing good music, because I'm glad that I like your music, because this would have been a fake conversation if I wasn't a fan. But fortunately, I love what I've heard from your music. But along the lines of fate, I'm not sure if I shared my last name with you or if you know it, but it's Midnight. And so when I heard Hurts the Healing, you say, there's a lyric where you say chip and you say midnight in the song. And so I feel like that is some sort of fate, that we belong to have this conversation together.
Yeah. I love that.
Really
signs are everywhere, man. It's
yeah.
whether we want to pick them up or not.
Yeah. So you've released 2 songs. Are those part of a new album? I think you said that you're working on a new album and it's getting ready to come out.
Yeah, we've recorded all the songs, and our goal is to get this album out either towards the end of this year or very very Q1 of next year. It's just really me being a perfectionist at this point and tweaking the songs until they're perfect. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff, as you might expect, and so yeah, it's always been let's go back to that statement we were talking about records, and I love reading all the different creators and all the different line items in a record, and it's always been my intention to create music like my heroes did, and also have my head on a swivel with new age technology like NFTs and all the Bitcoin stuff that's coming around, and I understand releasing singles and releasing stuff that's streaming. I get it, but I love records. I love when my artist, my artist that the artist that I am a fan of, I love when they release a 12, 15, 16 song record, and you get it, and there's B-sides, and there's those are some of my favorite songs. So I wanted to give my fans something. I believe that you should start with a fan and work backwards, and I believe that this is what the fans want.
So I love hearing you say that. I've had a lot of conversations over the last 18 months with a lot of interviewing, and I've asked a lot of bands about vinyl, and it sounds like what you're saying, right? Liner notes and thank you credits and all that kind of stuff is part of the package.
Yeah. It goes back to being yourself hitting hard. Like, I think the stroke or the AVM rupture definitely trimmed all the fat for me, and I just want to get closer to truth, closer to the bone, closer to the depth. And I've always been a no nonsense type of person. Well, I think that. I mean, I love the art of telling a story, and I believe you can't let the truth get in the way of a good story. But at the same time, trimming the fat of all this I'm just doing what I think is cool. I'm doing what I think I would like to hear on a record, and that's the way I make music.
Everything you've been through the last couple of years, does that play heavily into the lyrics that you're writing for the new stuff?
Oh, dude, how could it not?
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm a very you don't have to hang around me long to know how I feel. You know, I'm not somebody that's going to talk, you know, politics, or you know, or I might, you know, whatever. But you're going to know how I feel, and so I have a lifelong, relentless muse. You know, I have a muse. You can't go through a near-death experience and be an artist and it not find its way in some shape, form, or fashion into your music, into your art. And you just can't do it. I mean, you can't see angels in the corner of the room. You can't literally be fighting for your last breath. You can't see a woman literally give up everything without writing about that, you know, and songs that I'm going to release. This record is me coming out of that, is finding victory in that, and it is finding the joy of going through paralysis and not being able to walk for 8 months. It is the joy of trying to learn how to play a guitar that I played since I was 12, the joy of slowing down and seeing that putting on your underwear, don't take it for granted, because it was hard there for a while to put my damn underwear on, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
And Alex, my wife, was right there beside me, from everything from helping me use the bathroom to feeding me to all kind of stuff. And dude, I'm a man's man that wants to go out and kill the bear. I love to camp. I love to hunt. I love to fish, and I love self-sustainability of going out there and building my own house, catching the fish, cleaning the fish, cooking the fish, and serving the fish. You know, like I want to do it myself. This stripped everything back, brother, back to adolescence of I had to rely on the people around me to help me get back to the stage, to help me get back to tying my shoes, to help me get to putting my underwear on. And that's a vulnerable spot. And when you have that vulnerability, you develop empathy. When you develop empathy, I think you write better songs.
Yeah.
You write songs that are, that are just open and that people can relate to, and that people that have lost daughters in the midnight sweat, you know, shaking, they can get a little peace to, and you know, I'm not being dark here, but like if suicide is ever crept in to these people's minds, like if it's helped, if my songs help somebody it convinces them to keep living and keep going, my gosh, what a beautiful life that I'm living, and what a fulfilled day that is, that I get to write and to be a part of being on stage and make music and help people. You know, that's my life purpose.
Yeah, again, I love to hear you say that. The first interview I did after we lost our daughter was probably 4 months afterwards, and it was with a guy named Israel Nash. He's a songwriter out of Austin, Texas. And his music really brought me out of a fog. I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't watch TV. I had lost passion and enjoyment of things that I had before, and his music really brought me out of that. And I mentioned that to him, and he said the same thing you did. He said, you know, if I touched you, if I helped you, my job's done. Like, I don't even need to sell another record. He's like, that is what that's what gives me the satisfaction of doing this. And if I can touch one person, that I've accomplished my goal.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Everybody seems to have, and you mentioned it sort of already with it falling off a balcony, but everybody seems to have some sort of Ohio story. Like whenever I talk to somebody, they're like, oh, my aunt was from there, or my college roommate, or I was born there, or I had a show there. So what is your Ohio story?
Well, it dates back to that venue. I'm skipping on the name.
It's probably Bluestone, yes.
You know, Ohio has always been a very special place because, I mean, quite frankly, we can go right now and put 1,500 to 2,000 people in a venue, and they just always loved, you know, what we wrote, what we burned, the flavor of music that we put out into the world, and it's just always related. And there's so many different eclectic groups of people that live in Ohio. So my story would have to be, we had a big show at at Bluestone planned, and I had my buddies from Country Rebel there, and we had a lot of those songs that you see on that people have ate up on YouTube, like the Angel from Montgomery and Can't You See, and all those were taken that day.
Okay.
And I've always loved to go wherever my fans are hanging out, the fire starters. You know, a lot of times my Jenny Davis, who is over the fire starters, she'll call me and say, hey, they're at this bar. If you want to go pop up, they love it. And I'll just go pop up and have a beer with, 40, 50 fans. Well, I went and did that, and I'm not, I love libations. I love, the camaraderie of drinking, but I've never, as far as before a show, me jumping around and Eddie Vedder and shit out of everybody, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of balance.
Yes.
So there's a balcony around the corner of the Bluestone, and I'd got through the whole show and we had rocked it. But anyway, let me back up. Before that, I had some drinks for the fans, and I had a couple where I would usually take one shot before a show. Maybe I took like 3 or 4 shots, so I'd already started it at a pretty elevated level.
Yeah.
And I got out there and we performed and rocked the show. It was really good. And I jumped up on the speakers, which you're not supposed to do. They're built stacks of speakers. But I jumped up on them, and I was going to make this jump up and grab off the balcony and then pull myself up on the balcony. And when I did, I was sweating. My hands were slippery, and I was elevated, a little overserved. And I slipped on that balcony and fell like 25 feet on this fan. And this ends well,
Yeah.
But I remember my band at the time was kind of angry at me. And I was like, hey, no excuses for, me drinking a couple of drinks I shouldn't have drank. But, man, it's a show. And I'm going to put on a show in Columbus, Ohio, or Hoax Bluff, Alabama, or Bahrain, or Iraq. It don't matter where I'm playing, in front of 2 or 20,000. And that show, the next time I came and played at Bluestone, I had a completely different band, and I went in, and at the end of the show, I jumped up on the same speaker stack on the right side of the stage, and I jumped up and I didn't drink anything. I grabbed the hold of the balcony and I walked all the way around a little bitty lip on the inside of the balcony.
Yeah.
And I sang this song. So that is my memory of Ohio. The memory of Ohio is the mantra of my life. That if you fall the first time, I will fall until the day I die trying to do it.
Right.
I will just do it. That is my mentality. And that is the way I'm built. And if you don't like it, don't come to the show, because that's the way I'm going. And I say that to the old band members, really, because I'm not an angry person about it. It's just like I'm a daredevil. I always have been. I'll do the backflip on the mountain bike or get on the motorcycle and go. That's what I learned how to play a guitar for, because I want little boys to look at me and go, you know what? I don't have anything to fear. That's why I wrote The Coast is Clear.
Yeah.
God's the only thing you got to fear, so keep going. Don't be stupid and drink too much and kill somebody. But at the same time, like, life is quick. Like, I'm going to have a good time, and it is my nature to push the limit. And I think music needs that. I think people need that. And the out-of-body experiences that I'm trying to create at Bluestone or anywhere across the country or the world, I'm trying to create them every night, and I'm pushing the limit every single night. That's why I literally blew my own mind.
Right.
ABM exploded because I push hard every day, and a lot of times that tough mentality is, the Navy SEAL mentality of, oh, your arm's not hurting. Wait a minute, you just got shot in the arm with a AK-40, whatever.
Yeah.
and that ability to push through is why I'm where I'm at, but it's also the reason my brain exploded.
Right. Yep.
So it's a give and take, man, and that's what you're getting when you come to a Drake White and the Big Fire show. That's what you're getting when you come to these things, you know. So I just encourage people, if they had never been to a live show of Drake White and the Big Fire show, that to come. It's going to be the best show they've ever seen, I promise.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a record, get a record, get a T-shirt, because you're supporting a good cause. And we're going out and doing a lot of cool things philanthropically. And I just love doing it, and I've lived through hell to continue doing it. And I'm not special, but I'm very special too at the same time.
Makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, that's what I got. Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You know, I had been looking forward to this conversation since first learning about you. Just, I thought it would do me some good, and I appreciate you kind of carrying on that message and getting out there and telling your story, because I think it's important for people to hear that. And your point, people may not go through the exact same stuff that you've gone through, that my family has gone through, but if you can help people just understand in general that kind of stuff, and how you can pick yourself up and move on, I think that's a very important message. So I appreciate you doing that.
Oh yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Maybe the hurt's the heat.